I love great conversations. Hi, my name is Angel Jones. Thank you for joining me on 12-Minute Convos, where I help you create a brand of your own unique real self. Listen in as I have conversations with amazing people from all over the world. Good night, Aliya Janjua. How are you doing on this wonderful, beautiful night?
I am doing excellent. I'm looking forward to my conversation with you.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. What part of the world are you in right now?
I am in San Francisco, California.
All right, all right. And which of your talents is responsible for us connecting at this time?
Well, I'm also a fellow podcaster just like you.
Yeah. Tell us the name of your podcast, please.
My podcast is called Confessions of Successful Asian Women.
That definitely sums up a statement right there. Uh, Tell us a bit more, please.
I started Confessions of Successful Asian Women in 2016, and I noticed that there was a missing platform for women, Asian women in particular, to share their stories. I love listening to podcasts, and most of the podcasts that I was listening to were by white men for men. And I realized that there were so many powerful, inspirational women around me who had to share their stories. And so that's how I launched Confessions of Successful Asian Women.
Now, are you an Asian woman?
Yes, I am. I am a first generation Pakistani American. My parents came here from Pakistan about 45 years ago. I was born and raised in San Francisco, California. I'm still very connected to my Asian roots, but I'm also very American as well.
By chance, do you know someone by the name of Pooja Telus?
No, I don't.
Okay, because intriguingly enough, she was the podcast right before you, and she is in Singapore but originally from India.
That's amazing.
My friend, I'm fascinated as well. So, who did you learn the skill of podcasting from?
I learned it on my own. As I mentioned earlier, I love listening to podcasts. I started out by listening to Tim Ferriss, and I listened to the How I Built This. It's a NPR podcast. And then when I realized that I wanted to start interviewing women and start sharing their stories, I started doing a lot of research and I watched a lot of videos on YouTube. I read a lot of articles on the internet, and that's how I started.
That's wonderful. So, you just jumped in there and got going, right?
Yes, that's right. I made some mistakes along the way. It's a craft, as you know, that you keep honing.
Yes.
And I'm still learning the process, but overall, I'm really enjoying the connection with the various women that I've interviewed.
Yeah, I listened to the podcast today actually. It was pretty great. The conversation that was going on there. I'm glad that you're doing what you're doing. Pretty well done.
Thank
It's the first I've seen. I've been listening to a ton of podcasts in preparation, and yeah, it's the first of its kind that I've witnessed. Have you seen anything around that arena?
No, I haven't. I do know of another podcast. I was interviewed by this host as well. Her name is Sheena Yap Chen, and she has a podcast called The Tao of Self-Confidence. And her platform is geared towards Asian women as well, but a little bit different, more on the topic of confidence, where I tend to interview them about their life stories and, what are some of the things that made them successful, what are some of the failures that they experienced.
Yeah, it's definitely a poised position as to suggest that you too can be successful, right?
Yes, absolutely. And success is such a individual interpretation. It could be anything.
Love that. Love that. Why will you continue to do what you're doing via the podcast?
Why am I continuing
Why
to do
will
it?
you? Yeah, why will you
Why will
continue?
you? Well, I interviewed one woman, and I did this interview last year. She was one of the first Asian women to have her own sports PR firm. She represented Yao Ming and these professional sports celebrities. And the reason why I interviewed her was because she was looking for a bone marrow transplant. She was 35 years old and she got diagnosed with leukemia on her birthday. And unfortunately, 6 months ago, she lost her battle with cancer. And I received a message from a friend of hers where she said, Aliya, thank you so much for recording Jane's voice. I learned so much about Jane that I wouldn't have known. And, this is truly special. And for me, the reason why I do this is because I feel like I'm helping these women leave a legacy behind, that someone needs to share their story. And, a lot of these women are not famous celebrities. They're everyday people, but they're doing extraordinary things. And it makes me feel really good that I'm able to talk to them and help them share their life story.
Well done, my friend. Well done. Well, tell us one other thing that you've done consistently over the last 3 years, please.
Yeah. So I was very afraid of public speaking.
Oh, get
I'm
out of
also,
here. I can't believe
yes,
that.
no. Angel, I was very afraid. I grew up in a culture where it was, I wasn't, I was told not to speak up. And in my professional career, podcasting is my passion, but I also I'm a leader at a software company here in San Francisco, and I run our customer support team. And I noticed that in order for me to really break the glass ceiling, I really need to work on my communication skills. And every time I would go up in front of an audience or whenever I would deliver a meeting in front of a large group, I would get so nervous. It's kind of like the Seinfeld episode where, I think most people there are two things that people are afraid of: death and public speaking. And for me, I realized that I needed to do something about it in order for me to progress in my career. And I invested in Toastmasters, and then I also started attending a weekly communication workshop. It was it was communication for professionals. And I did that consistently for the last 3 years. And I looked for every opportunity to really improve my public speaking skills. And I wouldn't say that I'm an expert speaker by any means, but I do feel like because I've invested in this skill and because I was so consistent about it, that it's helped me become more comfortable in speaking. And I still get nervous, but I treat it as excitement versus, being anxious.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. Suggest to someone out there that's listening that they should do what you've done by approaching the thing you most fear and getting over that hurdle, if you would.
Yeah, no, it is. I think in order for you to really be successful in life, and that's what my podcast is all about, it's all about putting yourself outside of your comfort zone. And for me, I realized that I needed to put myself out there. And, podcasting is really putting yourself out there. I mean, for a person who was very shy growing up, who didn't really speak up that much, I mean, I think my biggest fear when I first launched my first episode was like, oh my God, I'm putting myself out in the world, and this is kind of scary. But, you realize that it's not so bad, as you know.
Most definitely. Amazing audience. You're hearing it live here from Aliya Janjua. Again, she's the podcast host of Confessions of Successful Asian Women. Aliya, is there any other place you'd like people to connect with you?
Yes, I'd love to connect through LinkedIn. I also have my Instagram page. It's called With Aliya, and I post the episodes there. And I also like to share quotes. I have my website, which is Confessions of Successful Asian Women. And those are the different ways that you can connect with me. I'm also on Twitter as well. So I'd love to hear from everyone.
That's wonderful. Well, Alia, let's switch gears for a moment now and let me invite you into my time machine that is surrounded with beautiful, warm, blue Caribbean water. Alia, what is your earliest childhood memory?
It's interesting that you asked me that because the podcast started back with a reflection to when I was maybe 7 years old. And I loved being outside. We had this swing court in the community that we lived in, and it was one of those old school tire swings that you would sit on and you could, swing really high. And I remember instead of being on the swing, I used to love talking to the parents who were there with their children. And I think even when I was a young girl, I was very curious. I loved asking questions. And instead of playing with the kids, I would be talking to the parents and I would ask them, like, oh, what are you doing for dinner? What are you doing on the weekend? What are you going to do for the summer? And I remember one parent in particular telling me, Aliya, you ask too many questions. You need to be a reporter. And and I was very curious, and I just loved getting sucked into, people's lives. And, I went through life. I went through school, college, and, being a daughter of immigrant parents, they had other plans for me. They wanted me to go into medicine and they wanted me to do these things, but my life took a turn and I didn't go into medicine. I'm actually, as I mentioned earlier, I work for a software company and I found myself in the tech sector. But I realized, a couple years ago, I reflected back to that memory and I realized that I loved talking to people. I love helping people and connecting with them. And that memory led me to start the podcast.
That's amazing. Well, you definitely connected the dots. You don't need my help there. I'm glad you did. If we fast forward to when you were 12, what was your favorite song?
Oh gosh. My favorite song was Man in the Mirror by Michael Jackson. And I got the Bad album on my birthday. My mom gave me a Walkman and the Bad album. And I remember listening to, at that time it was cassettes, right? So I got the Walkman and I would listen to side A and side B and just listen to all the songs. And I just love that song so much because I love the message.
For
Which
those
is
listening, for those, sure, go ahead. Which is the message? Sorry.
the message is let me just bring that up right here, which is, if you want to make the world a better place, you have to change yourself,
Yeah.
right? And yeah, no, go
Sorry.
ahead.
You could go ahead.
No, but basically the message is I'm starting with the man in the mirror. I'm asking him to change his ways, and no message could have been any clearer. If you want to make the world a better place, take a look at yourself and then make a change.
You're supposed to sing it. What's up with that? You're reading it. You're supposed to...
I'm not a good singer. I'm not like. All right, let me try it. I'm starting with the man in the mirror. I'm asking him to change his ways. And no message could have been any clearer. If you want to make the world a better place, take a look at yourself and then make a change.
Boom. There we go. Love it. All right, my friend. Well, we've arrived at our destination. But before we leave or get off of this time machine, there's a small declaration form. So it's yes or no, possibly a bit more. We're going to move pretty quickly here, Aliya. Are you ready?
Yes, I am.
Aliya, have you chosen someone to pass on your skills to?
Yes.
Are you married?
Yes.
Do you have children?
Yes.
Do you believe in God?
Yes.
Do you have an inner circle of friends?
Yes, I do.
Do you watch TV for more than 3 hours a day?
No.
How about 3 hours a week?
Yes.
What about screen time, the phone and or the computer? Is it more than 8 or less than 8 hours a day?
More than 8.
If you, Aliya, had to share with us your own unique real statement, a statement that represents who you are, what would you say that is?
It would be the quote by C.S. Lewis, which is, humility is not thinking less of yourself, it's thinking of yourself less.
Love it. less to the point that we sing, that we are starting with the person in the mirror. Love it. Aliya, this was such a great pleasure. Before you leave, is there anything else you'd like to share with our amazing audience?
Don't be afraid. Put yourself out there. It's amazing what you can learn about yourself by just being seen.
Love it. Aliya Janjua, thank you for being on What is Inspired by 12-Minute Convos with Angel Jones.
Thank you so much, Angel. I love this conversation.
You're welcome. Thank you for being on 12-Minute Convos with Angel Jones. Stay tuned for more from our advertisers.
Diabetes is a mountain pandemic. It's a disease that's not acute but chronic. Similar to this rhyming method, I have simplified the definition, the signs and symptoms, and the complications of diabetes for both adults and children in my books, Poems for Patients, A Focus on Diabetes, and The ABCs of Diabetes for Children. These books are available on Amazon.com, and for more information, you can visit my website, poemsbyaj.com. That's poemsbyaj.com.